I get this is pre-rendered, but why is the art style in such a way that it looks like it came out of a completely different video game? Like, look. What the hell?
I'm waiting, Cloud.
What the hell is this?
This is... Sephiroth.
Let's finish this.
You can tell the exact moment it stopped being pre-rendered.
Taken lightly.
Okay, well, building up that orange meter pretty fast here, though. Okay, start doing stuff like this. Please.
Come, Cloud.
Let's have a look-see at this. Okay, come on. Well,
Beg for forgiveness.
I'm not doing a very good job at parrying these things, am I? Sure doesn't seem like. Well.
Still in it.
Okay. Something like that. There we go, staggered. Oh, it just starts a thing. Don't think I have to hit any buttons during that, right? Oh, I can do stuff here now. Maybe do this? Please hit him in time. Damn you, game! Ah. Come on.
Planet proclaim
I assume I just try to dodge these because it's not like I can parry the spells. Well, didn't know the lyrics there.
No holding back.
Okay. Come on. Okay. Oh my god. No, I found the mod shit. Oh. Okay, before you do that, let me just go ahead and say...
Come on.
There, look, see if I care anymore. Okay, come on.
Enjoy.
Okay, just stagger him.
You're mine.
Like this.
Going all out.
Okay. And then... just do this then.
You're as good as dead.
Got 2 of the hits of it during that. Into the next phase. And the music changes. So, I mean... So I presume we'll be getting party members as this goes on.
Don't know about me. Good to go?
You know it.
Right.
Okay. Ow!
Anytime now.
Okay, come on. He's getting a little crazy. isn't he?
Don't overdo it.
All set.
Come on. Damn you. Come on.
That hit.
Ouch. Dang you.
Bring it.
Okay.
Enjoy.
I don't know how to dodge that, honestly.
Okay. No more games. It's on you.
I got it.
Okay. Please. The hell?
Keep it together.
Come on. Here we go. And then, oh nope, don't get to do rise and fall because we're doing this with each thing. Guess we'll be able to do it in a hot second here.
Shit.
What are you swearing at? We have the advantage right now.
Give 'em hell, okay?
Enough. Keep it up.
Come on. Well,
Don't make you walk away from the fire.
Let's do
okay.
this.
Do something like that.
Anytime.
I don't know, man.
Let's up.
Okay. Stop that, dude. Jesus!
Oh, let's go.
Why can't that? There we go. Jeez.
You're out.
All right.
I can't heal him for the life of me.
Ain't dead yet.
Jeez, man. Maybe I can. Nope, I cannot.
Take the lead.
I got it.
Okay, please, good sir. Stop that.
Finish him off.
Come on. No thing this time?
Pour on the
Got it.
Okay. Maybe something like this. There. A little bit better. Okay. Okay. Yeah, my ability to play this game is definitely, you know, a lot different than when I first started. Okay. Dang.
Ain't you two having fun?
Let's go.
Okay, another party member then. Lightning infusion. Getting lightning on your weapon or something like that. Is that what's going on here?
Now you're in for it. Deal with that.
Need my help?
Please. Come on. Come on. I doubt I can poison you, but like, let's try for funsies. So I may as well do. Come on. Something like this. A trombone cover is pretty good.
Not going out like this. It's on you.
Come on. Okay. Still not using the turbo ethers because I'm out of my mind. Okay,
Duty calls.
do this then. Call my buddy.
You can handle it.
Taking over.
No more games.
Let's do this.
Uh-oh. Just so that he hopefully doesn't target Cloud, because he's gonna be more likely to target whoever I'm playing as. I presume.
Let me handle this. I've got you covered.
Hang back.
Come on. My God. Please.
Right.
Come on. Please.
Keep it together.
Come on. Then say.
Let's do this.
Okay, come on.
Don't overdo it.
All set.
Okay.
You'll walk away from me.
You will know pain.
It's nothing.
Hang back.
It's not over yet.
Come on.
It's on you.
I can still fight.
Okay. Free is doing a thing here. Kind of trying to concentrate on this fight as best I can. Okay. Do some
See you
damage.
soon.
You scared of something? Take mine.
Taking over.
Hmm?
I got it.
Come on. Come on. Whatever. I'm not staggering you here anyway, so like, screw it.
I got it.
Oh, there's the pressure though.
Good luck.
Come on.
It's on you.
Let me
Please.
You're up.
Come on. All your pressure, baby. Come on. Well,
Shit. Get ready.
cross pike.
Here we go.
Wait, what?
All set.
Okay.
I'm waiting.
Bring in the heat.
Come on.
No more games.
Bring it. No holding.
Come on.
Try it.
Something like this. This is a little bit of insanity, is it not? Okay.
No more games.
Holy shit! I never put Raise back on here, did I? It's fine.
Enjoy it.
Let's turn this around.
Let's hustle.
Come on. Ow! Please.
No need to
Come on. Boundless Void.
Gotcha. There.
Cloud's having heart pains. Come on.
For you.
Please. Come on. Screw it. Come on. Please. Got the stagger.
It's over.
Come on. Well. Oh. I did not know that about Sephiroth. I know that he could use magic without materia. As was explored a little bit during Ever Crisis.
Enjoy it.
Let's do this. Never again.
Yikes. 9!
No holding back.
Come on.
Bring it.
Screw it. That said 9, so this might be a damage check. Come on. Okay, come on. This game pretty cool though. 8? He just teleported, so he probably won't again for a hot second.
Finish this.
Immune?
Shall I give you despair?
Okay, well. Let's maybe do something like this here. So I mean, still shows Mega Potion over there. Music got a little weird because I guess no, it didn't have to get to a certain part. There was no cutscene or anything there. Shadow Flare. Okay, well,
Get ready.
I mean, probably not. Come on. I wasn't paying attention to Cloud's health, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Kept you waiting.
We're getting really close here. Damn it! Heartless Angel. Sephiroth defeated. Nothing bullets can't solve. That's what I always say.
About time you showed.
We can do this. We can. We can change it. Make it right.
careful now. That which lies ahead does not yet exist. Our world will become a part of it one day, but I will not end. Nor will I have you end.
This is...
The edge of creation. Cloud, lend me your strength. Let us defy destiny together.
Never.
Not yet. Seven seconds till the end. Time enough for you, perhaps. But what will you do with it? Let's see.
Mr. Vice President.
Mr. President.
That's right.
Thank you.
Marlene?
Coming! Daddy?
Marlene! I'll come back.
So, what now?
Sephiroth. As long as he's still out there.
I thought you beat him.
We can. We will. Count me in.
If it's to be a hunt, you could use a nose like mine.
I'm in too. Bastard wants to destroy the whole planet, doesn't he? An enemy of hers is an enemy of Avalanche.
Almost there, Cloud. We're almost there.
The sky. I don't like it.
I would be lost, drifting alone.
The unknown journey will continue. I can't wait to get copyright claimed.
Time after time,
Well,
there you'd be,
that was Final Fantasy VII Remake.
shining brightly.
Not foreshadowing to say that there's gonna be more stuff, but... So, I had heard that Zack comes back. I mean, you see him in trailers and on the cover art for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, so I know that was like one of the big things that was happening at the end of this game. But it looks like it's not exactly our world. Is it like... we went through like this portal thingamabob, and then we went to another Midgar where, you know, we could feel free to destroy the whole thing, I guess. And it's in that one, after defeating Sephiroth and the plot ghost, that it was restored and Zack survived in that universe, and now it's a like different universe where he lived. Is that implied to be what's going on with frickin' Biggs there as well, surviving? Although, like, you know, if we went to this other world where it was right around the events of, you know, Zack's final standoff there, that would not line up time-wise as, you know, Biggs being all injured and being nursed back to health, which implies that that was within our universe. Something weird there. So they're gonna factor Zack in. I know that he's an important character in Rebirth. I don't know how they're gonna do that. They're doing like a whole weird multiversal thing where timelines are gonna split off and stuff like that. No, I get that it seems like a different timeline with Zack. I'm saying, like, it was also showing that alongside Big surviving, which implied that that was in that same other universe, but that doesn't line up time-wise, and it's odd. I don't know. That was definitely a experience there. I guess that's kind of the big twist at the end of the game, is that there's the whole multi-universes thingamabob, and that there's one where Zack lived. But then how is he going to become an important character if he's from a different universe, unless there's, I guess, these portals where you can cross over and stuff, and he's going to cross over and come hang out and stuff. I don't know. They're going to do something weird in this story. We'll see what direction it goes. We've got more games to play to see what direction they take this trilogy. I do at least appreciate them doing something different, so it's like, hey, there's something for new fans and old fans, so that people that have played the original game actually have something to be like, ooh, I wonder what they're gonna do, instead of being like, all right, I know exactly what they're gonna do, like if it was actually a faithful remake. But yeah, I don't know. Where do I even start talking about this this game here? What's with the gaps between characters? I guess just creating association. I see. I get it. Yeah, I don't know where exactly to begin here. I guess as I was talking about earlier this stream, like I said, I ended up playing through the original game in a 77-part series, and how many streams? Let's see. Out of curiosity, Final Fantasy VODs, how many streams did I have to do of Final Fantasy VII to beat it? Let's see here. I streamed Final Fantasy VII 8 times! The same number of times that I streamed this game. My stream is generally on the longer end. Oh, one of them was kind of a fillery. One of them was at Megaland, and it was only a 23-minute long stream. So, you may as well call it 7 streams. So basically, I have a similar amount of time. Hold on. How many hours do I have across these games? Because, here, let's switch inputs. Let's look at Steam out of curiosity. Hold on, just pause this for a hot second. I have 25 hours in this game. And for reference, Final Fantasy VII with like the 2 different versions, maybe my parts were on the longer end? I know I did a little bit of grinding between sessions. I don't know. Let's say that this is around like half the length of Final Fantasy VII by hours, but in terms of parts, again, it was a 77-part series for my original game playthrough, and this is gonna end up being like 60-something or other like that. Maybe early to mid-60 something. So, you know, it still took me a significant portion of the span of the original game. Again, like I mentioned earlier in this stream, looking at the playlist, Escaping Midgar was part 17 out of 77 of my original Final Fantasy VII playthrough. So, it's not like Midgar is a nice, perfect third of the story. It really is not. And if Rebirth goes up until the City of the Ancients there, or the Forsaken Capital, or whatever it's called, that means that the most of the story is going to be in Rebirth, more so than Remake 1 or 3. And then Remake 1 and 3 are more so the beginning and end kind of tacked on, while Rebirth is kind of the most of the meat is what they would have to do. So yeah, 17 out of 77. That is definitely not a third of the story there. I get why they would want to keep the first third to Midgard to keep it kind of as a more natural feeling first, second, and third, where it's like, hey, this is kept to just Midgar, and Rebirth is actually starting to go around the world and stuff like that. They can focus on just the Midgar things here. But man, this is a lot more than was in the original game, like, for the same amount of content here. And, you know, there's, as I've talked about during some of these previous streams, some of the additional things that they put in there does feel like interesting, meaningful content. Like, going on like a motorcycle sequence earlier in the game where it's like, hey, that's kind of cool, and then getting like some backstory with Jessie that, is that gonna matter long term if she's killed off? Maybe she's not killed off either? I don't know. But stuff like that, or delving into there being different branches of Avalanche, for example, and, you know, we're a little bit of a different division that is kind of split off and stuff. You know, stuff like that where it expands upon the story that we already knew in an interesting way and, you know, contributes to the world building. It's like, okay, that's interesting. I can dig that. You know, that felt like, you know, excusable to add there. That felt like meaningful additional content that expands the world that we already know. But, you know, doing padding like, let's run around the sewers for an entire chapter for a second time so we can go get the pendant of Don Corneo's, like, freaking gatekeeper. Like, ooh, that's world building that I really want to see expanded. I can't believe that we finally got to, you know, see a little bit of the backstory and the character of Don Corneo's gatekeeper. Ooh, you know? Where it says that, okay, so that's just before you open the game. So when I close it, it'll be actually accurate for the amount of hours that I have in. So, I mean, it'll be about 30-ish hours then, close to that. I've been streaming for about 4 hours. So, you know, it's gonna come out to about 29 hours for this game. So, yeah, still well over half of original Final Fantasy VII if we're judging that way. So, yeah, it really felt like they needed to get a full game out of Midgar here. And so there was a whole lot of padding. I remember when people first told me during my original Final Fantasy VII playthrough that Remake 1 is Midgar only, and I was like, what the hell? How? What do you mean it's Midgar only? What? And after playing this game, now it's like, okay, I see it. I don't know if I quite 100% dig the direction that it went into. Like, that sewer sequence was the worst padding. Another state of padding that I wasn't super fond of was the fact that after the plate falls, you do, this game has 18 chapters. You do 3 chapters, so like a sixth of the game, assuming that every chapter is equal length, so sure not, but you know, for the sake of argument here, 1/6 of the game, just screwing around, talking about, man, shit sucks, but we're gonna keep on pushing forward before you actually get to the Shinra HQ and start that sequence. Like, I don't remember exactly what the whole sequence of events was in the original game at this point, this is close to a year ago now. But I remember after the Sector 7 plate fell and Aerith was taken, that we got over to the Shinra HQ not too long after. We didn't spend 3 chapters, the original game didn't have chapters, but you know what I'm saying. We didn't spend 3 chapters dicking around being like, man, doesn't life suck now? Let's go stop those big bads or debate what we want to do for a little bit. Do we even want to go out and save Aerith? Like, it's a whole lot of kind of screwing around. And, like I said, some of that is meaningful content. Like, so during those few chapters of screwing around, for example, I did like the conversation that we had with, Cloud and Barrett outside, you know, Aerith's house there, which apparently that cutscene changes depending on what you did in the game and, like, different side quests and stuff and who you built up a closest connection with. So by default, it's supposed to be Tifa or Aerith, and I did check out those ones out of curiosity, those cutscenes. Check out the Aerith one, and, you know, Cloud's kind of hallucinating it or something or other because she's at the Shinra HQ. But they're all good there, and Barrett is kind of the one that you either have to go out of your way to get, / be the one that you get if you just did, like, no side content at all, from what I understand. And, that, you know, it was actually still a good scene there. I actually quite like that. So there were some scenes where it's like, we get to have the characters, like, really, I don't know if be fleshed out is the right option. You really get to see these characters a little bit more in depth and what's, you know, behind the scenes, not just their surface level, what's going on, like actually expressing their thoughts in a more humanized way, you know. So I did like some segments like that. Oh, that's reminding me of another section of padding, the whole tournament that we had to do to freaking do whatever it needed to do for What's-Her-Face, and then that also got What's-His-Face's attention from the Honeybee Inn for us to go do the Honeybee Inn segment. That is a segment that I really liked how they changed, actually, was the Honeybee Inn segment. When it turned into, like, the freaking, like, quick time event dance thing that was just so ridiculous and amazing at the same time. That was, like, one of my favorite segments in this whole game. Pretty sure RJ got a kick out of it as well. Looking over at my screen and seeing what the hell I was playing at A Land Before Time there. That was good there. But yeah, a lot of things in this game just take quite a while to get around to what it is they're trying to do. One of the things that I remember Lancer had mentioned at one point was that, you know, the story of these characters especially with, like, Cloud, went a little bit off the rails with, like, Kingdom Hearts and Advent Children and stuff like that. And this game brought these characters back to who they were in the original game, but now also explored them further than we ever saw in the original game. And that's something that I do appreciate about the story here, where it's like, these are the characters as they are, not some sort of Kingdom Hearts or Advent Children bastardization, and now explored a little bit more in depth than we actually saw them explored before. So that is something that I do appreciate about the story. But, you know, I feel like it just takes a while to get around to what you're actually here for. And as I've talked about during previous streams, I'm sure with some of these battles and stuff, I shot myself in the foot because I didn't really do any side content. But I just did not have the motivation to do side content when the game already felt like it was being padded to all hell and was taking so much longer than I had established in the back of my head from the original game. So my brain established that as, hey, I'm already doing a lot of side content. I'm already doing a whole bunch of other stuff on the side here, even though it is, you know, main game important stuff with the remake here. So I don't know. Yeah, I have no doubt of that. Where, you know, it definitely made the game a decent bit harder on myself. Could have gone around getting a whole bunch of different materia, some different summon materia and stuff. I got to get into the gameplay loop of this game a little bit better towards the end, and actually understand how this game was played. I'm sure the game would be, like, so much more in-depth and more satisfying if I did go around and got, like, more different materia and made different setups and stuff. So maybe by the time that I play Rebirth here, I might actually start engaging in some of that. But in this game, with Midgar just taking, like, forever, I just kind of couldn't really be bothered in the back of my head. I couldn't really get around to that. What other things about the story here? Again, I think the stuff with the plot ghosts is intriguing, so there's something both for new players and for old players, so that everyone can be like, ooh, I wonder what direction the story's gonna go, and experience it kind of collectively in that sense. I do feel like the story very much does rely on you being familiar with the original Final Fantasy VII story, especially with, like, some of this stuff towards the end here. So this was something that I talked about with Age of Imprisonment, for example, the recent Hyrule Warriors game that came out. And I'm going to be putting out, like, a standalone review video of that here pretty soon. It's basically done. I just need to put together a bunch of metadata for it. I was going to do it this weekend, and then I got busy. Point is, with Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, that game very much relied on you having played Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom to understand what was going on. But in a bit of a different way. In that game, it was like anything that was already covered in freaking Tears of the Kingdom, we just don't really discuss or explore in this game at all. In this game, in comparison to the original Final Fantasy VII Remake, to the original Final Fantasy VII, it does a whole lot of things that if you aren't familiar with the original story, you're like, actually, what the hell is going on? Like all those scenes that you see towards the end that show, you know, the ending. You see the meteor there in that one simulation. Or the consequence that it comes out to by making the story just Midgar alone as a standalone adventure, it makes it feel like Xenosaga Episode 1 to me, is the consequence of assuming that you're already familiar with Final Fantasy VII here. So, Xenosaga Episode 1 was originally supposed to be like half of the first arc that they were going to do of Xenosaga. And then they were going to do a second game that was going to be the other 50%. It was going to be a twofer for one arc. But Xenosaga got kind of rushed, they got over-ambitious, it took way too long, and it ended up being only 20% of the first arc. So one of my complaints when I played Xenosaga not too long ago is that there's all this build-up, and then it never goes anywhere. So most stories would be like, you know, inciting incident, rising action, climax, and then, you know, it dwindles down into the conclusion and stuff. And you can do that even with, like, parts of a trilogy, like, you know, still have, like, an overarching adventure, but still have, like, a fitting feeling climax. in Xenosaga Episode 1, it's just rising action into out of nowhere. Here's like a final boss before we even reach the place that we've been trying to reach this entire time. We beat it, we reach the place we've been trying to reach this entire time, and then the credits roll, and we have to play the next game to see the place that we spent the entire previous game trying to get to. So the entire game just feels like rising action. And as a consequence, that's kind of the way this game feels like. Where this game just feels like a whole bunch of rising action, and then a whole bunch of like crazy bullshit happens at the end. Where, you know, having played the original Final Fantasy VII, it's like, okay, I get it. I know who Sephiroth is. I know the whole deal with, like, the meteor and Genova, and that this isn't really Sephiroth that we're seeing. It's a part of Genova that's looking like Sephiroth that he's controlling from his place in the Northern Crater and all that stuff there. But I feel like if I was going into this blind, like, as a casual player that's like, oh, they're remaking Final Fantasy VII, this is my chance to experience it. This would feel like such a fever dream because I have no idea what these scenes I'm looking at are or mean. If I went into it super blind, like, I feel like this game has a little bit of an advantage of everyone's familiar enough with Final Fantasy VII that who's in gaming to at least be familiar with, like, oh yeah, Cloud's is good guy, Sephiroth's this bad guy that's trying to destroy the world. Like, you know, I knew that kind of stuff before I even started Final Fantasy VII. But if you went into this, like, blind and didn't have, like, the additional context of, you know, the reputation that precedes Sephiroth, as is very much the case just on the internet and gaming in general. Assuming you don't even have that, it very much feels like throughout the game, Cloud is having, well, maybe not throughout the game, more like the very beginning and very end, Cloud is having these visions of this guy named Sephiroth that he has some sort of attachment to in his past that you're not really familiar with what it is. And then right at the end of the game, when we're doing our big climax with Shinra here that we've been working up to, all of a sudden Sephiroth comes out of nowhere and Aerith just dumps on you. Oh yeah, by the way, Sephiroth's like the biggest threat to this planet and like some really bad thing that we have to deal with. And as a player going in blind, I would just be like, what the hell are you even talking about? Where did any of this come from? You know? So, you know, it's not that big a deal as someone that's played the original game where it's like, oh, you know, I know who Sephiroth is. I know what the backstory and connection between him and Cloud is. I know what his goal is. I know what this is working up towards. I know what these scenes mean. Destiny's Crossroads trophy earned. But, you know, if you went into this as a blind player, you'd be so screwed at the end. Like, I feel like a blind player will be able to go through most of the story and get it, because, you know, we're going, like, linear story through Midgar, stuff is happening, you can follow what's going on. It goes on in a very similar way to Final Fantasy VII Original. But, like, that last arc there just feels so out of the blue. Like, even as someone that has played the original Final Fantasy VII, it really feels like that wasn't put in because it was a place where it made narrative sense in terms of the overall trilogy, but rather because, ooh, this is the end of the first game because we really want to start the open world portion with Rebirth, so we gotta have a big conclusion here somehow. And so, let's go for that. And yeah, it was cool. It was a cool final battle. Like, I got a kick out of it. But narratively, it felt like it came freaking out of nowhere. Like, and I don't think that it's something that's gonna necessarily serve the overall narrative, that final battle with Sephiroth there. Yeah, I've got 28 and a half hours in this game. But, you know, they had to put something cool in at the end because it's the ending of a standalone game. You know, it's just, I don't know, man. It's odd. Remaking Final Fantasy VII did not have to be 3 games. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Maybe Rebirth and Remake 3 will really, really justify the existence of 3 games, and they'll just go, like, super crazy. I've heard that Remake 1 here sticks pretty closely to the events of the original game, but then deviates a bit more towards the end. I've heard that Rebirth, now that we've established that the story is doing something different, apparently Rebirth starts going in different directions a lot more freely. It's a lot more loosely based on the original. That's what I've heard. I won't know until I play it. So, you know, if Remake 3 ends up super deviating off and is a really amazing, like, standalone adventure, maybe then by the end of this I'll be like, man, that really did justify it being 3 games. But as is, just playing the first one, it definitely does not. And, you know, I don't think that this is a bad game or anything like that, but when you have the amount of padding that you had in this game, and, you know, even if someone's like a super big fan of Final Fantasy VII and is just like, man, I just want all the content that I can get, the more the merrier, you do also have to acknowledge that the price of entry with the original here was just one game that I think I literally have it here. The price of entry with the original was just go to the store, buy one unit, pop it into your PlayStation. I mean, it's multiple discs, so I guess, you know, you still gotta pop in multiple thingamabobs. But still, the price of entry is one unit. Whereas with this game, you want to, this series essentially, you want to get the full story here. Even if you're a Super Turbo fan and just want all the content you can get, you do have to acknowledge that you have to pay for 3 different games. Like, maybe they would make a altogether one game sometime way far in the future after all the remakes are out. Though I'd also have a hard time seeing that, considering the raw data sizes of things like Rebirth alone being absolutely astronomical. Unless they find a way to, like, super compress it in the future. I have a hard time seeing that. And I mean, I'm someone that I did like Final Fantasy VII. I actually really quite enjoyed that game. And I would have thought after, like, oh, you know, it's a remake trilogy. I'm skeptical, but, you know, I'm open to the possibility if we get, like, more meaningful content along the way, I can get more of what I enjoy. But when you have to shell out for 3 units, 3 different games for the experience of the remakes, it's just like, does it really justify the cost of entry? Like, I feel like when we're talking about, like, raw value and cost, the remake trilogy would have to be so much superior to the original game to justify you buying 3. Like, why, at the end of the day, why would I purchase, if I haven't played the original Final Fantasy VII yet, why would I purchase and play multiple games here to get a story that, you know, might end up being good, might not be, when I can buy one unit, which is significantly cheaper considering how old it is, but, like, you know, just by comparison, assuming these games are, like, same production value and, you know, same generation and all that, why would I not just go with, like, the one game option and actually get my start to finish story instead of this? You know, I'm just a little bit confused. I was kind of confused going into it and hearing that it was all a trilogy. I'm even more confused now. Before I ever played Final Fantasy VII, like a couple of years ago even, when I heard that Final Fantasy VII Remake was a thing, I thought that was what it was. I thought it was a full remake of Final Fantasy VII and that people liked it. Like, even when my doubles partner, Crash from Fragapalooza 2019, met up with me for Fragapalooza 2022, the hybrid event, and he was, like, pitching me on this game, as I've mentioned before. He brought his PS5 to that Fragapalooza event. I wasn't streaming all throughout the LAN events back then. I was, you know, just streaming a little bit on the side. And so during the night, like, off camera, he plugged in his PS5 and he was showing me this game and being like, man, this game is so cool and so in-depth. I'm learning how to play the different characters. I've just recently started to learn how to play Aerith. And he was, you know, preaching it like there was so much depth there that, you know, I know that there's obviously more depth than I got into with this game. But it feels like there isn't as much as he preached it to be. But even then, as he was, like, showing me this game and these battle modes and stuff like that he was doing in post-game, I was still under the impression that this game was a full remake of this game. It was only a couple of years ago that I found out that it was that they were remaking a trilogy, because I just didn't really know much of anything about Final Fantasy at that point, never mind Final Fantasy VII. So after Rebirth was announced, I was very confused. I was like, what is this? What is this game? I thought they already remade Final Fantasy VII. I'm sure that that's what a lot of average consumers like me would probably think, you know? That's what I thought as the average consumer in gaming that didn't really know a whole lot about Final Fantasy VII, thought about that situation where it's like, huh, that's, what's going on here? That's so cool about this game. Huh, you idle for too long and it stops racking up your playtime, so it's not going to, like, really inflate your hours if you left the game on too long. That's cool. I like that. More games should do that. Yeah, I just, I don't get it. I don't get it, man. Hold on. Chapter selection. Chapter selection has been unlocked. Open the main menu and access system chapter selection to replay any chapter from the beginning using your current characters, weapons, and materia. This is a great way to tackle uncompleted quests, find story elements you missed the first time through, and more thoroughly explore Midgar. Hard difficulty. Hard difficulty is now unlocked and can be selected by going to chapter selection and playing one of the chapters. In this difficulty, items cannot be used and only HP is restored at rest spots. However, certain manuscripts are only available in this difficulty setting. Huh, well, good thing it wasn't unlocked from the get-go and I didn't do my first playthrough on hard. Playlog. A record of your adventure can be viewed from System Playlog in the main menu. The log contains information from battle records to story branches. Other new features, bonus EXP and AP. You will now earn twice as much EXP and 3 times as much AP. New combat simulator. A new combat simulator has become accessible from Hojo's lab. To test it out, select chapter 17 from chapter selection. And yeah, literally just go there in the Shinra building. Skipping the bike minigame. The bike minigame can now be skipped from the pause menu. What, in like the 2 instances that it is? You cannot leave the main menu at this time. You can now replay any chapter from the beginning by accessing chapter selection via the main menu. Be advised that if you return to the title screen without first saving your game day, you'll be unable to use this data in subsequent playthroughs. Yeah, for like New Game Plus stuff. So yeah, this game never even has a section where you just have all your party members can freely roam and go do things. You have to shell out for the next game to do that. You know, pure linear, your party is changing all throughout, and then at the very end, it's just, here's a menu, go replay the stuff that you've already played. And I guess there just isn't any instance in the game where you freely have access to your 4 party members, and which could have been 5, by the way. You can play around with them as you want. Maybe you can in the little battle simulator thingamabob. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just... Chapter selection. A little smidge confused. Just go to the title screen, I guess. This is what I'll do. There's no point lingering here anymore. Here. Let's see what stuff I missed here and all that. But yeah, you show more expression with the characters compared to the original. Well, yeah, the original was the PS1 graphics. So everyone's like super polygonal and, you know, eyes bug out half the time on the PC version because it's a little whack there. Imagine being one of the low information consumers who bought this game thinking it was a remake of the complete original story. The cover art does give some basis for confusion. Yeah, it's called Remake. My game's on the shelf back there, so I can't pull out the PS5 version because it's covered by my 3D printer with its full enclosure. But, you know, trust me, bro. The cover of this game is, you know, Shinra building, cloud like that. There it is breaking the track in my camera. Cloud like that. This scene in Final Fantasy VII. Remake has Final Fantasy VII Remake and recreates this exact same scene. So, as a casual consumer, that's what I would have assumed, is that this was like a full remake of Final Fantasy VII. And let's say I wanted to get into more RPGs and try out different things. There would have been a good chance that I would have just picked this up, like, especially assuming if I had a PlayStation at the time there. There would have been a good chance that I would have picked this up, played it, be like, oh, here's the excuse for me to finally try out Final Fantasy VII. Especially if I was following the format on my channel where it's like, let's just play the most recent version of each game. This is the remake. Let's just skip playing the original. Let's just play the remake. Yeah, as a casual consumer, I would have been in for quite the surprise of, oh, okay. And I shelled out full price for that. You know, it's been several years. I didn't shell out full price for this game. I got it for a pretty good deal on Video Games Plus, but, you know, there's that. It feels incomplete, which is by design, but that doesn't make the feeling less valid. Yeah. But yeah. Let's see here. It's like PvZ Replanted. The original is only $5 cost of entry, while Replanted is $20, and Replanted doesn't have enough content to justify it being that much more money. But it's not like PvZ Replanted. PvZ Replanted is just like, hey, here's the same, like, $20, $5. You get a little bit more content with this $20 than the $5, but doesn't justify it with a new amount of content. This is significantly less content than this. You are getting significantly less bang for your buck for a game that is so much more expensive than the original, considering the original is old and, you know, you can get it for like, I think 17 or 18 bucks, something like that by standard, and you can probably get it on sale, like, for less than 10 bucks pretty frequently. But, you know, a lot of people don't really want to play older games. They want to play just, like, new, modern stuff. And, you know, there is some basis for that when older games, this one included, will sometimes be like, your objective is somewhere in the world. Go figure it out. You know, there is some older game kind of annoyance that comes with that. But, you know, guides exist at the end of the day, and I had fun with this game. But there is, you know, some quirks and jank and annoying stuff here and there that people assume is not really going to be the case in modern games. And, you know, people want to play the modern games with, you know, modern gameplay and graphics and all that stuff. And in a way, I can't blame people. You know, like, I get that feeling. But when you're getting so much less content for a much higher cost of entry, you can't help but make the comparison, you know? Long run, I expect that the price of the remake trilogy will drop significantly and there will be trilogy bundles sold at retail. Yeah, might well be. It'd probably be across, like, multiple discs and stuff, I would assume. But yeah, short term, definitely a weaker value proposition than the original game, which is so cheap and accessible. Yeah, absolutely. And even for those that really want like modern graphics, you can totally mod Final Fantasy VII Original to just have even the models from this game, interestingly enough. You know, didn't even hit anything, I don't think. Kind of ironic that Fire Red and Leaf Green is the opposite. It's less expensive than the Game Boy Advance games, but it has more content with it, having the event exclusive items in it. I don't know if Fire Red Leaf Green is exactly the best comparison to this situation here. Because the OG Final Fantasy VII is like $20, so this will cost you at least $70. I got this for like $45 Canadian, I'm pretty sure. Either 45 or 40. Like, I actually got this for a not half bad price. It was the thing. What exact price did I get it for? I can find out, actually. Because I remember I had like an exact price point that I was comparing to like modern Nintendo games. Hold on. Hold on, a hot ticker here. I'm gonna find out right now. Come on, new tab. Video Games Plus. I think 45 is what I got Rebirth for. Something like that. Log into my Video Games Plus account really quickly. Yep, confirm it's me. Let's see here. I bought the... Yeah, so I got a decent few thingamabobs here. It was this packet of games. I got it for 40 bucks. That's what it was. I almost turned on display capture, but then I realized that I was gonna like show all my personal information. So let's maybe not do that. Here. Boop. There. That's how I can do it. Yeah, so I got an EU version, as I've discussed before, with the with the game here, continuing to want to sell me this annoyingly. I mean, game progress 90%. It keeps on wanting to sell me that because of my stupid EU copy, and I had to make an EU freaking PlayStation account to redeem the code that came in the box. Which again, the disc literally says Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade on it, PS5. You'd think I pop in the disc, and that's the game I get. But no, it's just Final Fantasy VII Remake. Despite what it says on the disc, and the Intergrade stuff is a download code. And yet they sell it separately with the this, even though, in theory, anybody that owns this game on the PS5 and is inserting the PS5 disc would already have this because it's what they purchased. But, you know, as discussed during previous streams, it's probably just to hurt the resale value. So anyone that buys the game secondhand, even for cheap, like, I got this for 40 bucks. They want me to shell out 53.5 bucks. A decent chunk of change more than I played for the entire game in the first place, which is supposed to come with this. And I guess that's how they want to make their bag, and I've heard that these games have kind of struggled a little bit with being profitable, despite being, you know, successful. So, you know, maybe they're trying to find ways to make their bag in other ways here, and they're doing kind of scummy tactics like that, where it's like, yeah, you can buy Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade secondhand, but if you do, you're still gonna be paying, like, this much for this standalone. So, may as well just go to retail and buy yourself a fresh copy, sell more units rather than having to buy things secondhand. Or if you buy it secondhand, we'll have a way to make some money out of you anyway if you want the full experience and stuff. So that's a little annoying there. I got Crisis Core for 25 bucks. I liked Crisis Core more than I did this game. That was when I got the PS1 version of Last of Us, because I figured if I ever want to replay the game one day, let's maybe do it in a way where it's actually freaking playable and not breaking in two. Yeah, I got those 3 games for 110 bucks. Not too bad. Not too bad. But yeah, let's see here. I don't know if I would say that the original Final Fantasy VII is worth playing more than the full 3-part trilogy. I would say as is this compared to the original. Play the original. And if we're talking about like pure value proposition in terms of what you're getting for what you invest, like actually shelling out for 3 separate games, yeah, the value proposition is a whole lot better for the original game. Like that they do have replayability though, and a reason to keep your save file. Yeah, I'm really glad that this isn't a freaking Fire Emblem situation where it's like, oh, do you want to save before the credits? Congrats, your save files, like, may as well be useless now. So, there's that. Let's see, I missed a whole bunch of stuff there. Yeah, that's so dubious, considering that the game with all the integrated content would still fit on one PS5 disc, not like the Final Fantasy 10/10/2 Switch Pack or 10/2 download code, was at least partially justified by the game cart size costs. But it was a PS2 game. Like, it can't be that big of a game, right? Hold on. Hold on a hot second here. So yeah, if I hit the button on my actual PS5 here. I thought I hit it. Come on, disc out, please. Darn you. Like, look. Oh, it doesn't actually say Remake Intergrade on it now that I see it. But it does say PS5. And PS5 is specifically the Remake Intergrade version. And the box says Remake Intergrade. But I'm now noticing that the disc does not say Remake Intergrade. It just says Remake. But, you know, if you buy the PS4 version, then it would just be Remake. You buy the PS5 version, and what it says on the box is Remake Intergrade. You don't have the option on PS5 of getting the normal Final Fantasy VII Remake version or the Remake Intergrade version. You buy it on PS5, you're only buying Remake Intergrade. You want to buy, like, just Remake, you buy the PS4 version. And it's gonna say PS4 on the disc. So they should be able to put the freaking Intergrade stuff on the disc. It's just odd, man. I don't know. Well, I was about to say maybe I could just leave the disc out because I'm done with the game, don't have to put it back in. Technically, I'm not done because there is the Intergrade content, but I'm gonna do that sometime later. I might do it at Megaland, but Rebirth is coming out on Switch 2 sometime around. Look, there's Zach. We are right now. I might do Intergrade, which is like 3 to 5-ish hours, something like that, start to finish at Megaland. So I keep on doing stuff at LAN events. But Rebirth is coming out around that time, so maybe I want to do episode intermissions sometime before that. And then my thing for Final Fantasy at Megaland can be starting Rebirth, or maybe I do both. I don't know. No guarantees. One way or another, I'll continue a little bit of the Final Fantasy VII series at Megaland. Whether it's what's remaining in this game or, you know, that. 'Cause yeah, we're not done yet. We have to do this. We do like a Yuffie side story where Yuffie shows up in Midgar and does a little side adventure. I don't know how important that's gonna be, but like, you know, we'll see. It's a thing that they added to this Intergrade version when it released on the PS5. And, you know, the subsequent console editions and stuff. So, I'll do that at some point. But for now, I'm done with this game. Comparing it with PvZ Replanted? Maybe. I don't know. I already read that one. File sizes of the remastered versions of 10 and 10.2 are big enough that including both on a card requires a 32 gigabyte card reader rather than a 16 gigabyte card. There are Japanese and Asian variants with both on the card. Huh. I did not know that. But yeah, I do own Final Fantasy 10 and 10.2 for the Switch because I got that like on sale however many years ago. But when the day comes that I eventually play it on the channel, I might just do the PC version. I don't know. Anyway, I feel like I've probably said my piece on the story. There's probably other little smidges and tidbits that I'm missing, but that's generally what I felt about the story. The gameplay here, I didn't like it at first because I really wish that they had just gone like full into either the ATB system or the actions, the combat system, because this is not snappy by any means especially compared to a typical action game where it's expected that your inputs are going to be like extremely snappy and responsive. You hit block, you hit dodge, you dodge. This game, that's not always the case because you input an attack and one attack by Cloud could be like a 4-slash swingy crazy thing, and it's only after he finishes that your block input will come out or your dodge input will come out. The dodges felt like they would get you out of the way, but I don't think they had iframes. And I found that really frustrating at first because I was starting out treating this like a typical action game, where it's like, why would I use my MP if I don't have to? You know, I felt a lot more willing to use my stuff in a game like Final Fantasy 16, where, you know, my spicier things are on a cooldown, but they don't actually cost me a resource or anything like that. Because there was MP and like an actual resource cost in this game, I kept on being like, oh, let's just not burn that. Let's just conserve it. So I feel like I went into this playing it decently wrong and not getting it because I was trying to treat it as like a full-on action game where, you know, there's this ATB system that I guess I can engage with and use my MP. But why would I do that? Let's just use my ATB just for like my skills that don't cost me any MP. And that's how I was playing this game for a while. And I did realize as it was going on, okay, this is a clear design choice with the expectation that you can't treat it as like an action game where if you're skilled enough, you just can avoid getting hit completely. You can just play it damageless. You know, it's not one of those kinds of games. They did try to mishmash it so that the expectation is like, hey, you can try to mitigate damage in some way and reduce the amount that you're taking, but you're gonna be taking damage a decent smidge of the time, and you gotta like use your ATB strategically across your party members and your strategic like materia setups to mitigate that and continue to survive and get yourself into a better position. So as I played it and I actually understood what the intended gameplay flow looked like, I did start getting into it a little bit better. And I, you know, did get into like the whole character switching and being like, I need ATB on this person now so I can go do this action, switch to them, or, you know, with the AI allies not really doing much on their own, I gotta switch to set them up in this way, you know? So I did actually get to engage with the system as it went on, but it took me a while to understand it and not just be stuck in the headspace of, this is an action game that has this on the side, and man, it's kind of a sucky action game. So I did dig it as it was going on. Look, here's where you can compare the cover art. I'm just now realizing looking at this. So I kind of hated the gameplay in the beginning, what with the whole mostly just mashing square. And I did start to dig it as it went on with the whole micromanagement and keeping an eye on my ATB and multitasking across a whole bunch of different things. And realizing that I can't just treat it as a typical action game. I have to treat it as like a crazy multitasking, juggle a whole bunch of things at once game. And once I started doing that, you know, I started enjoying it. I actually started getting a kick out of it. Doesn't change the fact that still most of the time I was still kind of mashing square. And I do wish that there was still more depth than that. Of course, there is sometimes I hit the triangle button, you know, once in a blue moon, depending on the character. So I do wish that the actual action part of this game had a little bit more depth in that sense, but, you know, I guess it's fine. You go into really crazy battles and you're going to be super focused on, like, using your ATB and your menuing and stuff like that a whole lot of the time anyway. I like how when you were going into the menu, you could take your time with it because it turned the world into, like, super slow-mo, but didn't 100% pause the game. It made it so slow that, like, it may as well be paused for all intents and purposes, but it feels like it's still ongoing. Like, I did get a kick out of that. Yeah, VAT speed. Yeah, it was basically Fallout VATS is what it was. You're not wrong. Where, you know, you're targeting someone, seeing like percentage chance on the head, and they're like slowly going like that. Yeah, VAT speed. That's what it is. Why does it still say I have 90% and not like 100%? 100%. 100%? Doesn't show a percentage because PS4 game. 100%. Oh, I know what the last 10% is. It's gotta be the Intergrade stuff. Is what it is. That's why it doesn't show 100%. That would make sense there. But yeah, Rebirth is much better. Goes into the combat pretty quickly. Still starts the same as this game though, but it unlocks way earlier. So it's like the combat kind of like the original game. You use all the characters in the original game like you do in this game, plus a few more. Apparently the new playable characters in Rebirth are red. That could have been playable in this game, but wasn't. Yuffie and Kate Sith. I hear that even though you recruit Sid and Vincent, you just don't get them playable in Rebirth. I guess because they wanted to hold off to have more value to Remake 3, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, I'm still a little bit iffy on the combat system. I do think I would have gotten a bigger kick at the end of the day out of like full action or full ATB. But I guess at the end of the day, I want something that's full ATB system. I can always play this, so it doesn't invalidate the original game. I want like a full action thing, or Bob, I can just play like the other most recent Final Fantasy games, you know? There's nothing stopping me from doing that. So, you know, it was something a little bit different. I did get to appreciate it a bit more at the end. We'll see what my thoughts are when I return to the gameplay system after we've done this. Because I'm sure my thoughts will continue to expand as I actually get into the gameplay system and understand how it works and stuff like that here. You know? So we shall see. That's what I kind of felt about the gameplay there. Tying into like the story and padding, some dungeon sections just felt like they dragged on really long, just, you know, while we're on the topic of gameplay here. Like approaching the second reactor that we were gonna bomb. I forget which reactor it was, but whatever the second reactor we were going after was, with Cloud, Baird, and Tifa. Yeah, I don't remember there being a dungeon leading up to that point in the original game. It was just, you know, the reactor itself was the dungeon and led up to the airbuster and stuff. Whereas in a remake, my god, I can't hear myself while that's playing there. In remake here, we do this super elaborate dungeon. Okay, reaction number 5 then. And we end up doing these puzzles of needing to turn off the power from over here so that it powers like the elevators that we have to take or something or other. And it's like, okay, what is this actually adding to the game outside of just runtime, obviously, which they needed to justify making Midgar its own game? Or that dungeon in Shinra HQ towards the end, where it's like, ooh, this really contributes to the overall narrative. Hojo is gathering data on us by having us run around doing all this random crap. Ooh. Like, I guess it kind of mixed up the gameplay and forced you to use the different characters by having, like, the 2 separate squads of 2. That idea I liked. That I appreciated. But this game didn't really have much in the way of interesting puzzles. Yeah, Hojo gathering Resident Evil combat data. And that's kind of the way that was with, like, all the dungeons in this game. Is there was no real puzzle solving or anything like that. Like, sometimes there'd be some light puzzle solving, like, use the big robot grabby hand to move the shipping crate over and make platforms. And I did like how if you didn't figure it out, the game would just tell you so that you're not there for, like, ever. But, you know, the puzzles usually come down to look at it, and it's obvious. Or, here's, like, this one exact expected thing that you have to do in one exact order, like with the freaking grabby hand thing or Bob, that, you know, you don't piece together that, oh, this is an option. I didn't realize that that was an option at my disposal. You just gotta wait for the game to tell you, and it's like, that's not really meaningful puzzle design. And if you're not really making meaningful puzzles, then what the heck is the point? Runtime, I guess. I don't know here. So, you know, I wasn't super fond of that. Okie doke, take care there, Guzma. Oh, story. One more thing I remembered about the story here. Everyone has got the hots for Cloud in this. And, Kuzma redeemed time yourself out for 10 minutes. Alright, enjoy the 10-minute time out there. And, you know, I do think that in the original game here, Cloud is a very fascinating character that's, like, coping with his own grief by, you know, taking on all these false memories and a false personality to lock himself away because he mentally can't take any more grief after losing his mother. Everyone in Nibelheim there thinking that he lost Tifa, losing his mother, losing Zack, you know? It's and it kind of turns him into this, like, very secluded guy, and with all these false memories and adopting a personality so completely contrary to who we knew Cloud to be before, as we saw in Crisis Core, you know? Very different from his personality there, like, very much turning into a different person as a shielding and coping mechanism, like, in denial of all the stuff that's happened to him. And he goes through this journey in Final Fantasy VII where, you know, along with Tifa, he has to kind of accept what happened and deal with all his, like, shattered memories and shattered psyche and acknowledge that these things happened and press onward regardless. And, you know, I think it's an interesting story, and I think that he's an interesting character. But you would think in this kind of story, where if we do something similar in the remake trilogy, which might not happen considering, you know, the characters that die might not actually be dying as is happening here, like Zack coming back, for example. You would think that this type of story would be like when Cloud's like his actual real self, like being honest with himself and, you know, not being some asshole edgelord. That's when people would start to like him. So the way that I would handle a story like this is have the characters around him really not quite like him, kind of tolerate him, but, you know, be willing to work together with him. And when he shows, like, willingness to, you know, not be such an asshole and, you know, come out of his shell a little bit, is when characters start to connect to him a bit more. That kind of happened in this game with him and Barrett. I thought that was explored well in this game. But generally speaking, it's like, when he's his real self is when he should have the reward of people liking him. And because he's actively pushing them away, and yet Tifa's into him because, you know, that one makes sense story-wise. Growing up together, not knowing what's going on with him, wanting to, you know, help him out and understand what the heck made him like this. we don't really see that explored as much in this game. Like, it's something that I know, having played the original game, and I'm sure it's something that we'll see in Rebirth, especially in, like, the opening segments, where we leave Midgar and Tifa's like, huh, these things Cloud's describing aren't what actually happened. So maybe we'll see that explored a little bit more there. We do see a little bit of Tifa being hesitant, like, huh, you're kind of different than I remember, but, you know, not explored too much in this game. But, you know, Tifa I can excuse, because it's, like, you know, that situation there. Aerith 1 can semi-excuse, because, you know, you could argue that Cloud reminds her of Zack. But it still is a little, maybe a little odd, I don't know. But one could also argue that's just Aerith's personality, and it doesn't mean that she has a thing for him. Like, we didn't see it in this playthrough because I got the Barrett cutscene, but I did look up the Tifa and Aerith cutscenes that you would get outside of Aerith's place out of curiosity. And one of Aerith's lines in hers is that no matter what, you can't fall in love with me. And it's like, okay, well, maybe that shows that, you know, she's just personable and a nice person to everybody and doesn't really have a thing for him. The one that doesn't make any sense is Jessie. Like, she's just met him as, like, this mercenary that they've hired to help with these jobs. And, you know, the goals of all the characters, Tifa's like, you know what, let's help those that are important to me. Help out Avalanche, even if I'm not as, like, destructive as maybe Barrett. And, you know, try to help my childhood friend here while he's clearly struggling, and try to keep him where I can keep an eye on him. Aerith doing her own thing and big vibe in there. And Jessie's goal in this story is, how can I get into Cloud's pants right now? Like, and it's like, why? Especially while he's being, like, his super asshole edgelord. She even comments at one point, like, there's a such thing as being too hard to get. And it's like, again, why? Why, narratively? Like, if you want to write a narrative where it's like, he's super asshole edgelord because, like, he's doing it as a coping mechanism and locking himself away, but after he becomes his true self is when other characters start to have, like, a thing for him, or something like that. That would make sense narratively, because it's, like, rewarding him being himself, essentially, and they're seeing him for who he truly is instead of pushing everyone away. But being the personality where he's pushing everyone away, and, you know, being like, ooh, yeah, more of that, please. It's just, yeah, I guess so. Just into that. Just into a freak like Cloud. I guess so. But it just feels, like, very out of place, and it's not something that complements the story, like could be the case if you took it in the approach that I just suggested. In fact, it's something that feels like it kind of detracts from the story a little bit, in my opinion. Like, you know how in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the story is generally, like, a super serious, and, like, damn, that's a really hardcore, serious story with, like, some very serious messaging. But there's just scenes where it's, like, the most fan-servicey anime thing you've ever seen in your life, and is so completely unrelated to the story that it makes you cringe, and it makes it hard to take the rest of the story seriously. That's kind of like this game with the situation with Jessie and Cloud, in my opinion. Where it just felt kind of out of place, and made it more difficult for me to take the story quite as seriously, you know? Like, you know, especially with the exploration that we had with a little bit of Jessie's backstory and the situation with her father, for example. Like, maybe she doesn't ask Cloud specifically for help, but just asks the whole group for help, as she ends up getting ultimately anyway. And, you know, Cloud has to be the one to still do what he has to do there and go into, like, his room there to get his key card or whatever the heck. But this entire time, like, Jessie's not really liked him, and, you know, he's been very standoffish towards her and been, like, really mean towards her. And then maybe he sees that, you know, this is going on in her life, and, you know, she's clearly got a lot of struggles of her own. And then maybe he starts to, you know, be a little bit kinder, maybe a little bit less of an asshole, as he started doing with Barrett as this story goes on. And then maybe at that point, Jessie's like, huh, maybe this guy isn't such a dick after all, you know? You could do something like that narratively, and it would work and be in line with Cloud's character. It felt like they just went a little bit off the rails, you know? So there's that. And being realistic doesn't make it the best story decision, because it is realistic that a person could be into that. Yeah, that is true. Like, absolutely. Everybody's got their own tastes. Like, that could absolutely just be what Jessie's into. But, like, narratively, and for the purpose of the story here, it does the opposite of what the story is trying to actually tell, where Cloud's completely locked himself away in, like, his own grief and his own struggles there, that he has to adopt this other personality. And then meanwhile, the world around him rewards him for that. And it's like, what kind of lesson are you trying to tell here story-wise, even if realistically someone could be into that, you know? It just, that was one of the parts that bugged me about this story. Okay, maybe now that's everything for the story that I wanted to say. Graphics, I thought they were pretty darn good. Mostly. I had some complaints with the graphics. A couple minor things. For the most part, this game looks amazing. I thought that, you know, it was a pretty breathtaking game. Lots of instances where I'd want to just, like, stop and look around and, like, actually take in, like, the grand scale of Midgar. Like, original game, you've got, like, the top-down PNG backgrounds. You're seeing just little snippets at a time. And you don't really get a true sense for, like, a sense of scale for... I guess you sort of do in, like, the opening sequence with, like, the 3D camera panning around. But in just regular gameplay where, like, you have, like, your own agency to explore around, you don't really get to take it in during those times. Whereas with this game, you get to actually look around and see, like, the plates above and stuff. And, you know, it really does give you, like, a foreboding and grand scale feeling. I kind of like that. The characters look awesome. You know, the costume design and everything, like, spot on. It's super visually charming. The animations and stuff during cutscenes and even during combat is pretty clean and nice. So, overall, graphics pretty darn good. But I do have a few complaints. One is, you know, some of the segments where you're up high and you're looking way down below, it very much feels like it was designed in such a way that they didn't really want you to be staring at that for too long, because you do very quickly realize how it is a JPEG. Like, it doesn't really matter if you're just running around and it's just in the background and you're not paying that much attention to it. And I get that you wouldn't be able to render, like, actual massive scale model of, like, all of Sector 7 destroyed, for example, as, like, an actual 3D model. It makes sense for it to be an image. But maybe it could have been a nicer, less imagey image? I don't know. I don't know the first thing about graphic design in that sense, so maybe I'm talking out my ass here, but that's how I felt as a player, at least. So that's one minor complaint. Another one is the pre-rendered cutscenes felt like they came out of a completely different game. Like, maybe that was just the filter, as Mortis suggested, I believe. The models themselves felt like they were different, is what I felt like. So, you know, it went from me playing Final Fantasy VII Remake to me watching something like Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, where the models just looked different. And I get that, obviously, like, some things are going to be a little bit different from my actual gameplay, what with, you know, Cloud always using the Buster Sword in the pre-rendered cutscenes, because they're pre-rendered. Like, it's whatever. But he just looked different. You know, a game that I was talking about earlier was Xenosaga Episode 1, and across the pre-rendered cutscenes and the in-engine cutscenes, they look different in my playthrough because I had, like, the graphics enhancements on this PS2 game, so all the pre-rendered ones had the graphics of the original, whereas all the, you know, in-engine ones were done with better graphics. But assuming I was playing the original game, they would be indistinguishable from one another. It would be seamless and just be like, wow, amazing cutscenes. I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between, like, what's pre-rendered and what's in-engine, like I could when, you know, I enhanced the graphics the way that I did. So, it flowed a lot more seamlessly there, or would in a normal gameplay experience. With this, the moment it's pre-rendered, it completely takes you out of the cutscene that you were just watching, because now all the models, especially Cloud, I felt like, looked different. Especially Cloud and maybe second most Barret felt like they were just from something completely different. And it kind of threw me off and took me out of the moment a little bit. And my biggest complaint with the graphics is the places where the game is bright, I felt like it looked kind of bad. I feel like in medium to low lighting areas, this game looked really good. It used the lighting really well. I really like the atmospheric sense of, like, these darker or medium darkness areas. But when it's, like, bright sunny day outside, which I don't know how it was with, like, the plate above, but whatever, I guess, it was freaking bright. And it was so bright that you couldn't really see the fine details on things anymore. You could barely see shadows. And it looked kind of like something like freaking Snowpoint Temple in Pokemon Legends Arceus, where it's just, like, one shade. And so it looks very unprofessional. It looks very slapped together and haphazard, like early alpha version. Because you don't get the more complex shading of, you know, it being a little bit darker, getting more shadows, and, you know, different shades around with, like, the finer details. It was just kind of, everything is bright. There was only one chapter of the game where that was pretty consistent. But, you know, that one chapter around the midpoint there as Cloud's explore around with Aerith, I felt like the game genuinely looked bad. I did not think that it looked good. So most of the time, this game looks really quite good, and I like the graphics of it. But when it goes bright, and it makes it hard to see or appreciate the fine details anymore. So, yeah, there was that. While I was talking about that, I had one more thing about the story pop into my head that I wanted to mention, and I've completely forgotten about it now. So I don't know what the heck it is. Because one more thing that I could have mentioned is, like, if you're a blind viewer going in out of nowhere and seeing Sephiroth out of nowhere at the end. Red 13's in a similar position where it's like, who are you? You know, since we don't get the time to actually explore further like we did in the original game, you gotta wait until you play the next game to actually see who the heck Red 13 is. It almost came back to me what the other thing that I wanted to mention was. But now I've completely forgotten. I remember later I can always put it in like pinned comment or something like that on YouTube. So it's not the end of the world. I can always append there later. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Final Fantasy VII Remake here. So overall, there was parts that I enjoyed. But yeah. As I've mentioned before, I do want to start doing some standalone review videos for some different games. I'm going to start out with Age of Imprisonment, which is basically done. I just got to do like all the metadata and slap stuff together, and maybe I'll actually have it done for next weekend, like I meant to this weekend. And with those reviews, I think I want to start rating games on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is like, oh my god, this is freaking amazing. If you're into video games, I'd recommend you this game no matter what. This is great. 4 would be like, it's pretty good. It's pretty solid. If you're intrigued with this IP or this genre of gameplay, I would recommend checking it out. It's pretty good. 3 would be like, it's mid. It's average. Play any other game in like the same IP or genre, and it'll be a pretty similar experience. It's just average. Like, if you're really interested, check it out. But if you're not really interested, just go play other games. Like, there's so much like options out there nowadays. 2 would be like, it's bad. It's less than mid. Like, you play an average game in the same IP or genre, and it's going to be better than this one. And 1 is like, I wouldn't recommend this game no matter what, even if you do have like an established connection to the IP. 2 would be like, you really love the IP or the genre, you'll probably still get some of a kick out of it, and I could recommend it to you that way. 1 is like, I wouldn't recommend it no matter what. Probably very few games that I'd say are a 1. Probably things like Skull and Bones or Detective Pikachu Returns. You know, things like that I would probably say are a 1. On that sense of scale, I would probably honestly give this like maybe a 3.5. Maybe hovering closer towards 3 if I want to be a little bit harsher. But to be clear, mid is not bad. It's just average. It's alright. Like, there's stuff that justify the price of entry, but, you know, not necessarily something that I would recommend going and seeking out when there's so many different games out there in the market and you can play like so many different options. So this to me was not at all like the absolute amazing masterpiece like those like Crash had preached to me, where it's like, oh man, you gotta play the original Final Fantasy VII and then you gotta play this. This is so freaking amazing. Like, he loved this game. He was really trying to sell me on this. But on playing it myself, I don't see it. That's me. Maybe that's controversial to say, but you know, it was fun. It did something a little bit different. I got into it a bit more at the end. Probably would have been more fun if I explored the materia more, and you know, I'll do that in Rebirth. I'll get a little bit more deep into the weeds when I play that game. But you know, it's just it had some cool things that were added to the mix that weren't in the original game, and got to explore characters a bit further. And you know, did so while being very visually stunning. But it just kind of padded out a very minor segment of the original game to justify turning it into like a full start to finish game that you shell out for. And it's like, that isn't necessarily worth it, in my opinion. So, that's me. That's my opinion there. So, yeah, that's Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like I said, we're not done yet because there's this that I'll play through at some point that's apparently on the shorter end, so I'll just do this like start to finish in one sitting. Maybe it'll happen at Megaland. Maybe it'll happen before Megaland, and then I start Rebirth at Megaland. I don't know. But I'll do it at some point. I'll most likely do it either before or on Megaland. We'll see what I end up deciding I want to do with Rebirth. Depending on when Remake 3 is announced, I could always do this at Megaland and then start Rebirth at Fragapalooza or something like that, and keep things going with LAN events. Really depends on what the timetable would be for Remake 3. And if I want to potentially start playing Rebirth around the same time that it comes out on Switch 2, like I did with this game. You know, start playing it at a time that more people are playing it for the first time and might be intrigued at seeing what the game is like. Seeing that. If it's worth checking out at all on their Switch 2s. I don't know. There's options. There are options here. Next PS5 game, though, is going to be this right here. In 2 days, the co-op mode releases. And I might use that as my excuse to get back into the main game as well and see if I can beat Takezo. Which, according to both Anima and my Taekwondo instructor, is apparently darn near impossible. And I don't think either of them has any faith in me beating him on lethal mode. But I kind of want to try it. And I'll probably play the co-op mode with them both at some point. So there'll be some more PS5 stuff on the channel here soon enough. And, yeah. Not gonna start that right in 2 days, because I gotta do it like when schedules line up for us. Which is one of those situations where it is whatever it ends up being. But yeah, expect some Ghost of Yotei in the near future. Going back to that game. And I'll do episode intermission of this at some point. I've got other games going on right now. So yeah, it's Final Fantasy VII Remake. It is 6:42. Maybe I'll, in terms of trying to finish off other things, maybe I'll do some more Mario Tennis Fever side modes, and then I can knock that off too. Because the current game queue going on here looks something like this here. Boop. Just started Fire Emblem Sacred Stones a few days ago. I'm counting this as just one unit now, because I'm literally playing them both at the exact same time. I don't know when I want to seriously commit to this. I haven't even published the first video of this on YouTube yet, because I'm like, maybe I should hold off on that until, like, I actually commit seriously. But, like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. This will be in a couple days. I'm getting stumped in this. Frickin' Assassin's Creed Valhalla is going to take me forever. I'm literally stumped on 2 bosses that are unreal in difficulty right now. The second one especially. That's, like, my main things. I kind of want to knock these 2 things off, so, you know what? Boop, done. And then maybe I'll do this, and I'll get that done too, and then we just have, like, this, which is still a lot, but a bit more manageable. It really feels that way. It is legitimately giving me, by far, the hardest bosses I've seen in the entire Assassin's Creed series. Like, it's wild. The last boss took me 3 hours, and the boss I'm stuck on right now, I think I put, like, an hour and a half something into, until my game crashed, and I was like, I guess that's enough for tonight. And I'll look up what strategies people have done, and we'll see if it ends up taking me however many hours more. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna go take a little bit of a break. Maybe I'll finish off another thing tonight. But yeah, that's Final Fantasy VII Remake. Which is also not done, as I mentioned, but it's done for now. I'll be back sometime later. Appreciate everybody that tuned into this series, this playthrough here. Hope you enjoyed. But now, we've got some other game stuff to do. Shut down this PS5.